Good evening, everybody. I'm Victoria Weather Meteorologist Ryan Henning. We are scheduled for a video forecast for Columbia, South Carolina, but obviously there are more important weather phenomena and news going on. I have the national composite here focused on the southeastern United States, and we can see the big story right now on the coastal bend of Texas. Still with a well-formed eye. It made landfall a few hours ago. This is Hurricane Harvey. Like I said, that eye is still very well formed, even a couple hours after landfall. Just to tell you how intense it was, it made landfall as a Category 4 hurricane, which is one of the top 5 strongest landfalling hurricanes of all time. Even Hurricane Katrina, which made so many headlines for how devastating she was only Category 2 when she made landfall. So that should tell you something about the intensity. There's been a lot of reports between Corpus Christi and Rockport, just to the north across the bay, of significant damage to the coast. There's copious amounts of video. I'll probably be sharing some of that later this weekend from hotels and even some of the storm shelters, which received significant damage as the eye wall made landfall. And there was even a great deal of calm for an extended period in Rockport as the eye wall, or the eye itself, traveled over the city. And you don't necessarily always see that on land, because, like I said, this is perhaps the most impressive eye and structure to a hurricane I've ever seen this long after he made landfall. And it's a very scary situation. The wind and the power and the storm surge all associated with that are scary in and of itself, but perhaps the root cause for disaster for so much of Texas, by the time all is said and done, is the fact that from this location, the center of Harvey probably won't move by more than about 50 miles for an entire week. In places like Rockport, even though there's no sensors right now, because everything's been damaged or destroyed, there's already been almost 9 inches of rain, and that's just within the last 24 hours or so. And like I said, this whole system isn't moving for several days. There are the highest forecasted rain estimate I've seen out of the models is from the Euro, which unfortunately tends to be one of our more accurate resources, and that has up to 55 inches of rain in some parts of coastal Texas between Corpus Christi and Houston. And that is essentially where our best threat for extraordinary rainfall will be. Will be in that stretch, including places like Galveston and Victoria, and those areas. Even if they don't get 55 inches, there's a strong chance that they could get 4 feet of rain, which, coupled with the storm surge, will cause catastrophic historic flooding across the region. And there's really not much more you can add to that, except to wish our friends down in the area well, and hope for an immediate and strong response from basically the entire country, as we try to support the region as they recover and try to rebuild over the next, frankly, for the next several years. This is a bad storm. I can't really emphasize it enough. He didn't look like much after he traveled over the Yucatan, but he slowed down enough and he was able to gather strength over the warm Gulf, and it was just a perfect blend of bad news as he continued to drift north and is now parked just off to the north of Corpus Christi, and will continue to wreak devastation. that eye wall still being intact suggests that winds are still hurricane strength, maybe even still category 2, 2 to 3. There's not really anything left there that's giving us any measurements. So it's tough to say exactly how strong the winds are, but you can believe that they are still strong enough that they're blowing around anything that's not bolted down. Still for the Aransas area to Refugio and headed towards Victoria. So that's the situation with Harvey. It's a terrible one. I'll show you a few more images here in a couple of minutes, but for the other business at hand, looking at the forecast for Columbia, South Carolina, you can see there isn't much going on radar right now, but this collection of showers and thunderstorms from the Bight of Georgia down towards the Eastern Gulf, with an especially concentrated area of thunderstorms south of Tampa down towards Naples. That is also a tropical feature. It's disorganized at the moment, but it does look like that is also going to organize as something within the next several days, and that would be an additional tropical feature. And I'm going to compare and contrast Harvey and whether or not this does organize into a tropical feature later on in this forecast. But let's first look at the warning cone. And this is such bad news, guys. It's bad enough when a hurricane hits somewhere, but it's so much worse when it just does not go anywhere. So 1 a.m. Saturday, that's where we are right now. You can see on shore. It'll kick in towards San Antonio, but then it's still just west of Houston, between Houston and Victoria by Wednesday. That's what, 4 or 5 days out. 5 days out, not moving anywhere, still pumping in tropical moisture, and that's how you're going to get your 50-some inches of rain. If Rockport got 10 inches of rain in 24 hours, you can imagine what 5 times that's going to be. Well, 50 inches of rain. So just a potentially devastating impact across eastern Texas. And again, just to reiterate, this is 240 hours worth of forecast. As you can see with the AP11 track ending up here in western Louisiana, and it's just all clustered. San Antonio east towards the coast, with the potential forecast tracks for Harvey for the next 10 days. Just not a whole lot of motion. So on a happier note, let's move on to South Carolina. Here's a picture of downtown Columbia on a sunny day, kind of rubbing it in, given the news of the world tonight. So let's, well, I've already got it focused on South Texas. So I know for a fact that there are more observing stations between, Victoria, which was up here, VCT, down towards Corpus Christi, which is not reporting because they have closed likely until Monday. Let's see if I can pull Victoria back, unless they had just dropped out, because they are closed as well, and it looks like Victoria has dropped off. The last observation I saw for them, they were up at 49 knots, which is 55 to 60 miles an hour. That's what they're at Palacios, and then offshore as well. And then down towards Robstown, it's a little bit quieter at 42 knots. It generally is the case if you look at the direction a storm is trying to travel. The front right quadrant is usually where you're going to see the strongest wind. So that would put that approaching Victoria. So the quieter end is going to be on the southern end towards Corpus Christi in terms of wind, if nothing else. So I just wanted to show you that, and also just emphasize that this whole region Here's San Antonio right here. So down to the southeast towards the coast, Padre Island, Matagorda Island, that area. There are usually observing posts, and they just vanished. Either because they dropped out, because they are manual observatories and they've been evacuated, or whatever automated sensors are there have been damaged or destroyed. It's not uncommon to see in a hurricane situation, but it's never something that you want to look at. Again, this is the first major hurricane that's made landfall in the United States in 12 years. So we're all getting a refresher on how devastating their impact can be, and we're paying for the absence of such a storm with Harvey, which undoubtedly will go down in the history books as one of our worst hurricanes on United States soil and in history, up there with Hurricane Andrew, Hurricane Hugo, and Hurricane Katrina, and may ultimately end up being the worst hurricane that Texas has seen in modern history. So I've moved it our map over to Columbia. We can see that the temperature right there, 76 degrees. Most of South Carolina is in clear skies. Not only are they avoiding any showers or thunderstorms, but our two features down in the Gulf of Mexico are pretty much drawing in all the moisture across the region, cutting off any flow further to the north. So it's sunny sky, or well, not sunny skies. It's 1 in the morning. Clear skies for the Carolinas, 75 degrees. I should say it's actually 3 in the morning. This is a little bit of a late night for me as we monitor Harvey and what's going on with the weather across the country. So about 75 degrees, clear skies here at 3 a.m. in Columbia. We could look at our models here, and let's take a look first at Harvey, and just, he's not going anywhere. Just incredible how little motion there is to Harvey. He finally does take a jaunt inland up towards Waco, but that's not until late next week. And meanwhile, if we watch the development over North Florida as it moves into the Gulf Stream, and it's already out of the picture by the end of the same forecast period. That's what we should expect from a tropical feature, not Harvey's, overstaying its welcome. So if we look, we can see that the developing feature, I should have looked at what his name would be. Let's, I'm going to do that real quick. Don't mind me. Couldn't figure out what to search. Well, since I bounced down towards the upper level forecast here, this is kind of interesting because there is no jet, and usually you would find like a cold front or something that would pin a feature like Harvey down there. So it's more the lack of a driving force that's allowing him to stay. Whereas our next storm, and I've almost got the name, just hold on, Irma. So if that system over North Florida comes together, it will probably likely be Irma. She will be able to hook up with this jet through the Mid-Atlantic and pull her off the coast. And also because of her likely association with the jet stream, she's going to pull in some colder air. Oh, there's the NAM, which really wants to do some bad things with Irma, or future Irma, if you can compare the GFS and the NAM. And again, the NAM really doesn't do a whole lot with Harvey in terms of storm motion. Just to emphasize the point that he's not going anywhere. But for our purposes for forecasting for Columbia, even at her potential worst, she's not likely to bring much, if any, rain to the Columbia area. but she will pull down a little bit cooler air. So if you look at through our forecast period, this is the end of the day on Monday. Regardless of what model you look at, there won't be any moisture in Columbia by the end of the day. But we can see the forecast does bring temperatures down considerably tomorrow with an expected increase in clouds. Well, the rapid refresh does keep, or excuse me, the wrap just keeps the forecast a few degrees colder than the rest of the consensus. I would probably venture towards about 87 degrees tomorrow with low on the warm side compared to what the wrap and the GFS have, just because it's still pretty warm in central South Carolina. But then by Monday, I guess it's by Sunday, temperatures will be cooling down as the potentially developing Irma will bring a slightly cooler vent to the area. And just once again, I'll show you. This is the same forecast period as Hurricane Harvey map, 240 hours, and look how much further Irma will travel in that time frame. Just incredible. So once again, I'll leave you with the radar imagery for the southeastern United States tonight. Just take a look at what Harvey's doing, and say a prayer for all our friends and any family down in southeastern Texas. Have a good night, everybody.